be here today. So I've got Daz Smith with me, and I have interviewed Daz in the past. So if you're interested, you can go onto my, I guess, my Odyssey channel and also my website and just search under his first name. It would be the simplest, DAZ, and the interview should come up. But Daz, welcome, and it's lovely to have you here today.
Hi there. Yeah, it's nice to see you again.
You too. And so what I wanted to do is maybe set the sort of playing field because of how I sort of stumbled on the situation based on a video that Dick Algier made. I don't know if you guys all made it together, however you do that, but you're part of the team and you guys are currently remote viewing cryptocurrencies, correct?
Yes, yeah, that's our main, I guess our mainstay stable of work. But also for the same patrons, subscribers, we also look at the news a month ahead, and we do the occasional mysteries and other kinds of targets as well. So it's a bit of a mixed read, but mainly cryptos.
Okay, so mixed bag, and so basically what happened was, and I'm going to actually share my screen, and so bear with me here as I get this organized, but it's not always the simplest thing. So let me see if I've got the right, actually, website picture here. So, okay, so while I do this, I've got to pull up the actual website, so just bear with me. While I do that, can you talk, why don't you introduce yourself just in terms of your background, okay? And
Yeah,
say
yeah,
something about how you got into this whole field, et cetera.
yeah, no problem. I've been a remote viewer now for going on 25 years. I was first introduced to remote viewing at a UFO conference in 1992, and then decided from that point on that I'd try to find out about it and learn it. Of course, that was pre-internet then, so it wasn't until 1995 really when the remote viewing projects became public and people started going on the internet that I managed to get a teacher and train in it. And I've been doing so ever since, really. The last 4 years I've been working with Dick Algier, Edward Riordan, and Niam, and a few others now in an operation called Crypto Viewing, where we have subscribers that essentially fund us to look at cryptocurrencies, gold markets, and the S&P 500, things like that. But we also, on a monthly basis, look ahead a month at the global news, which is, I guess what we're going to be talking about tonight, which was one of those. And we occasionally do the occasional mysteries target for the people as well.
In terms of all of that, I'm going to scroll through my website here because I put out an article showing, and if you go to my website, this is on the front page, obviously, and that's the banner. So just click on the banner. And basically, I actually featured one of your books, and you're on Amazon, so people can go
Yeah.
there and also support you that way. So what we had is a developing story, which of course is the eruption at La Palma. And I was doing some investigation on that. I don't actually remember how I stumbled on your cryptocurrency show, but I'm going to scroll down to the actual first show. So this was the show that you were supposedly, as I understand it, and you can certainly correct me here, you guys had all gotten together as normal on to do the viewing of what was going to be September, and I'm assuming this was sometime in August, and
Yes.
you just wanted to look at what were events in September, I think was the target.
Yes.
And then it was just sort of an amazing thing that you all came up with the exact same quasi mushroom cloud, whatever you want to call it. And then Dick Algier, and you guys put together this video. I saw Dick's face. Actually, I wasn't really paying attention to the background because the title didn't say anything about, anything.
Yeah.
And, so I didn't know that was a design or what, and I didn't even know who this guy was at first. And then I thought, wait, I know that guy. And I've interviewed him in the past. And so that's when I actually paid attention. I started to watch the video, and I was amazed that you guys had actually remote viewed La Palma in theory. And
Yes.
I want to talk about that because I want to talk about are you convinced it's La Palma? And I know that you normally do the kind of results would go on your Patreon. And granted, this is a free show we're putting out. So, in whatever way you want to do to sort of, still safeguard what is the unique experience that your paying viewers would have. But still, I think this is a, worldwide event. It could affect a lot of people. It's ongoing, and that's part of the story. So if you can talk about maybe how did it develop that you guys saw the same thing that I thought you were planning to see cryptocurrency things that might affect cryptocurrencies. Is that how you look at it? Or maybe you can explain all that.
So what we do each month is like for example, this week before the end of the month, so I've got 2 days. I will probably tomorrow sit down and do my remote viewing project where I will look at October's global news, and then I will try to record that in a remote viewing session, and my colleagues would all be doing the same, and we do this on a month and by month basis. We've been doing this for 4 years now. And although there's 4 or 5 of us doing the remote viewing, sometimes 1 or 2 of us does have an overlap where we both, get data on a very similar thing that's happening. But what was strange about this one was we all sat down for our Zoom meeting, 5 of us, to look at this, 4 remote viewers and a project manager. And the project manager is someone I'm actually training in remote viewing as well, although they're not as part of crypto viewing as a remote viewer. And we were just shooting the breeze, and I said, I don't really want to go through the news this week because I had to do it twice because I just couldn't shake this massive mushroom cloud that I was getting. And then everyone's face on screen just dropped in complete shock. And all of them were like, oh my God, well, I had a mushroom cloud as well. And they all had mushroom clouds, and even the person, Dennis, who's doing the hosting for us, who does RV on the side, as I said, even he had a mushroom cloud in his RV session that he was doing just as a general practice run for himself. So we were just really shocked at how strong the mushroom clouds came across in our imagery, and it kind of started from there, really.
Right. And so at that point, what exactly do you do? Because okay, let's talk a little bit about the actual, remote viewing when you do have a target, and the way I think yours is 20 pages long. You were kind enough to send me your particular viewing. I understand that there's maybe some things in there you don't want out there, and we can even talk about that. But what I want to do is talk a little bit about process. So does that mean that everyone has 20 pages of information that eventually you publish? Do you publish it at the end of the month to your Patreon people?
Because we do it pretty much a couple of days before the month starts. As soon as the month starts, like I'll be doing mine, say tomorrow for October's, and then within a day or so of October starting, our patrons will get to see a video of the news that we all do when we kind of read out our impressions live on Zoom, a bit like we're doing now. But they'll also have a paper copy of everyone's remote viewing as well in advance, so they can determine if any of the predictions we come up with are of any use for them. And it's not just, like the La Palma thing that came up. I generally ask myself questions when I'm doing the RV for the month. So what will the top global news be? I sometimes ask what the top European news will be. Then sometimes I ask what the top crypto news is going to be, because I know our patrons want to know that. And I just ask other things as well. Sometimes if it's all looking a bit grim, I will try to ask what the top positive news for the next coming month is going to be, and stuff like that. So we all do it in our slightly different styles and ways, but overall, I would say each of us does about 10 to 15 separate news predictions each month. So there's 4 of us doing it. So there's probably 40 to 60 predictions of what's going to happen in the next month, which is a whole range of things from catastrophes to, where the markets are going to go, crypto or normal.
Okay, and can you give a percentage of accuracy? Because I know you and Dick are, I think you both used to work for Courtney Brown. I don't know how you
Yep.
viewed that as contractors or whatever you viewed it as, and then eventually you both left. That's how I came across you initially.
Yes. Yes.
So what is your hit rate? Because you're both, I think, world renowned at this point.
Okay, on normal RV targets, which aren't looking at the future, because for those that don't know, we can look at the past, present, and future. And across the board, all remote viewers in any discipline doing any kind of style, past and present targets, they're generally very accurate on if they're trained, less so on future. So on normal, present, and past targets, I would say I don't have a set figure, but I'm very accurate, and I would say over 80% accurate over 80% of the time, easy. But I know that on my news predictions targets, based on me databasing the entire last year, not this year, but the year before, 2020, I'm only 60 to 65% accurate on predictive targets.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my dog in the background. She's decided to play. So in terms of the other remote viewers in the team, don't you all have to have your averages have to be kind of close to have even teamed up, type of thing?
I mean, we're all pretty accomplished, but I don't know if it's left to us as individuals to database and look at our own results. So I don't know what theirs are. I mean, I do know, just from an ad hoc basis that month on month, we have, we social media and talk about over the period of a year hundreds of hits for top global news events. We are pretty accurate. As I said, I'm about 65% accurate. So that's if I do 10 a month, six and a half every month are going to be going to come true.
Okay, so now I'm going to go to the next video. I assume you can see the screen, right?
Yes, I can see it. Yes, and feel free to if you have my RV session up and you want to show bits of it, then feel free to do that as well.
Okay, great. I do have it on hand, so we will, we'll do that. And this is your drawing just here in the corner, by the way, just for
Yes.
people who are watching it right now, and they see this picture here. And no doubt there was plenty of interesting things going on. Also, this Evergrande situation is a sort of a moving target, from what I understand, in terms of the financial situation.
Yes. Yes.
But what I want to do here is actually get your take on this. So these are the mushroom clouds. This is only three of them. There was one other. This is actually a photograph and showing how
Yeah.
similar, imagery. But maybe you could explain when you got this target. You've got some quite. I mean, I can pull up your thing. You've got some. Now that you're saying you're willing to have that shown. You've got some quite striking sentences in there
Yes.
that you kind of say to yourself, and I think that that's fascinating in and of itself that you just do it that way. But can you explain kind of your process in terms of this particular viewing? Because it almost sounded like whatever you were seeing, you kind of had a different. I don't know. It was affecting you, sort of in your viewing process, because you made some comments to that effect.
Yeah, I did two on this one, and that's in 4 years. It's the first time I've done two on a news event because I started my first RV session on this, and I literally, in the moment I put the pen to paper, I just could not get this really strong feeling and imagery of a mushroom cloud out in my head, and in the RV session I tried to move on, tried to think about other things, but it just kept coming back. So that bothered me because in RV I don't get imagery, which sounds weird because it's called remote viewing. It's more for me like internal, very subtle feelings. I hardly get any flashes of imagery at all, but this was quite strong. So I stopped it and I said, I can't, I've got to be what we call AOLing here, which is where your imagination comes into play. And then I went back to it a couple of days later. I thought if I give myself a couple of days rest, I might be able to get rid of it and then come back and get the proper news that I thought was going to happen. But I came back to it 2 days later, and again it just reappeared with the same stuff. So, yeah, I just ended up trying to cope with it as best I could with my experience and recording the data.
Okay, so that's really interesting. The idea that you were able to actually have such clarity as to go back to remote view the same target a few days later because you felt that you were getting some kind of overlay. And
Yes.
so you went back to view it, as you're saying, and I'm still looking for the thing. But and if you have it, you can also share your screen if you wanted to do it that way. But if you didn't
I can
prepare
put.
for this, so
Yeah,
don't
no,
worry,
I can put it
I'll
up.
keep looking. And we can put it on the page later also. So, because I'm sure you remember it. And I remember it quite well. So, in essence, you were writing comments and then you had to break away. You wanted to be accurate. You thought there was an emotional overlay. You come back to it and
Yeah.
then you resumed it and you got the same thing. Would you say that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so at that point, you were writing. One of the comments you wrote that I thought was quite striking. Well, there were two. Now, this again, you could be 65% right, or you could be, whatever
Yes.
that 35% wrong, or whatever it is. So, what would you say when you made the comment? For example, this is associated with USA. Number one, you said that at one point, and you said you're getting a USA feel from the story. And
Yeah.
then the other thing was that you said could be mass casualties. And luckily, of course, La Palma at the moment is not in that state. We're not getting mass
Yes.
casualties. We're getting evacuations, but not casualties.
Yes.
So, any thoughts about those two impressions that you were getting, and maybe commentary on what?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm always wary with my RV because when I'm looking at predictive stuff, because experience has shown me when looking at future events is the events. If I report a catastrophic style event in my RV, the event usually comes into play and it usually happens, but the magnitude of the real event is usually considerably less than I report in my remote viewing sessions. It's almost like, yeah, in the process of trying to get it out on paper, it inflates it like an ego. It just overinflates it a little bit too much, and that's just from experience. That's why I'm always wary when people get hold of some of the predictions in talking about them, because I know that they're usually slightly overinflated on the paper, but that's hard for me to portray to people that are just reading the raw data. So I think that's probably what happened in this case, but bearing in mind we got 2 days left to the end of the month, so I don't like to say my predictions are over until the month is ended. And also, although I strictly stick all my stuff within the month that we did it, some of my colleagues like Dick believe that remote viewing doesn't take any time into account, so that there's some of our events when we're looking at the future could happen a week or two or even longer sometimes after the event that we've looked at it, because we're not constrained by time, and remote viewing isn't stopped by the end of the month just because we say that's the target time kind of thing. So there is a possibility that something else could happen, or this event could get worse over the coming days or some. So yeah.
Absolutely. So, so just for the viewers, the idea is also that, as you say, you're not constrained actually by time, but because we live in this sort of what people view this universe or sector as being sort of in a linear way. Humans tend to look at this
Yes.
event and that event and that event in very linear way, when in reality, what time is simultaneous, and therefore time in remote viewing is very hard to pin down. So,
Yes.
but it's very interesting to me that, and yes, there's no doubt that this is a developing story, but
Yes.
also, and I did find your viewing here, so I'm going to bring that on the screen as we talk.
Excellent. Okay.
But and here is where you said USA. It says in intrigue. Sometimes I can't read your word.
Intricately linked. Yeah.
Intimately linked here. It has a feel of
Yes.
USA. And so, this is where someone will say, well, what were you really talking about? What was your sense there? And there's a number of ways to go at that question, because in a certain sense, if there was a tsunami, or if there was a threat of a tsunami, it could, the idea is that it would go across the Atlantic and wash again, the shores of the 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 upper East Coast, or even down as low as Florida, so that it could impact the USA directly. But it's a hypothetical, right?
Yes.
So we're
Yes.
still in that hypothetical land, and indeed there are some people. I actually put in my article that the USGS recently, I don't know how recently, decided to come forward and say that everything they said in the past was wrong about La Palma, that it wouldn't cause a tsunami that would go against the United States, wash up against the United States and with ferocity and all that. So they contradicted themselves. But the USGS, in my view, because they downgraded their scale years ago, I believe that they are infiltrated by the government in certain ways, and that they are controlled, tightly controlled. And so that it was suspicious to me in and of itself that they came out with such a statement. And then I have actually on the page on my website, and I do encourage people to watch it, a short video that's all about an English guy who appears to be a very accurate, excellent scientist just by the description and the video. And he completely contradicts what USGS is saying. So he is saying, no, actually, they were right the first time. This could have monumental effect. And recently, Cliff High came out with a video explaining how water doesn't do what they say it's going to do, and so, and that it might not have the impact that people think it could, or the threat that it could. So we have all that. I think the jury's still out on this kind of thing, because real volcanic monumental events, such as the breaking off of a piece of an island and falling into the sea, is only, we have only so much experience in this era, with it directly. So that's a long-winded sort of explanation as to how this statement you made. What were you thinking when you made that statement?
It's hard because remote viewing is very subtle, and I can't be sure if I was having a USA kind of, as I said, flavor. It just has a very subtle feeling to it, and I can't be sure if that was because it looked like I was seeing what looked like a mushroom crowd, and I instantly think of seeing films of them testing them in the deserts of America. I can't be sure if that was just some kind of imagination thing that come in saying USA, or if it's real data. The only thing for us as remote viewers that confirms this is when we get eventual feedback. So I have to be honest on that. I don't know what was happening there. It just did have a USA linked feeling to it.
Okay, and what occurred to me, and I have been to Tenerife, and Tenerife is one of the Canary Islands. It's very close to La Palma. In fact, I think you can see La Palma from Tenerife, as I recall. And I was just there a couple years ago, so it's fairly fresh in my mind. And it is not impossible that this is that this is happening and it's a triggered event, and then how might it be triggered? Now, I know this is not the kind of, speculation is not what you do, obviously, but it is to some degree what I do. In other words, adding two and two and trying to come up with some kind of answer as to how these various disparate elements may come together. And so when I'm looking at the situation, I'm thinking, okay, if there's an element of the United States that is triggering what we call weather wars, and that this particular site could be used as a tool in a weather war, knowing that we're coming up against various crucial things in the United States and worldwide. There's threats of food shortages and global disarray to do with the financial system. And I'm sure you could even speak to that, because you must have been viewing some of these elements. So I just want to throw that out so to get
Yep.
people thinking. I'm not really trying to say anything here
Yep.
definitive. It's just the thought. So that would relate again to the USA if there was some kind of element in which there was some hidden weather war piece to this that could be orchestrated by governments that have control of what we call weather weapons. It's also very interesting to me, this whole thing that you guys seem to have concentrated on. And for this, I'm going to actually try to bring your pictures up on the screen, because your drawings and such, because I was struck by the fact that you didn't, correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe I didn't read it correctly. You don't, this was a spectacular, impressive drawing. Uh, it does look a little like a volcano, but you didn't seem to use the word volcano, and you also didn't seem to see fire. Now tell me,
No.
did you see that or did I miss it?
No, I didn't see volcano or fire. It more felt to me, from my RV session, like a. I felt the explosive nature. I remember picking up that quite a few times, and like there, it's talking about the cyclic energy and stuff. So I remember seeing stuff like that. But yeah, nothing that would have indicated to me, if I'm completely honest, a natural event. It felt like a man-made event.
Okay, and so then a person would have to say, if you're looking at future events and you're viewing September, and the most obvious thing to grab hold of is certainly the La Palma event. And as we see on that video that I showed just a minute ago on the there was a photograph that shows kind of the mushroom cloud
Yep.
configuration. But then I was asking you, at least in writing, saying, well, are we sure this is La Palma? And is there did any of the other viewers, I don't know if you're able to say this or it, but did the other viewers get, one, the volcano, and two, fire?
I can't remember off the top of my head because it was a couple of weeks ago. I'm
Okay.
just trying to think. Uh, I'm not. I'm not sure, to be honest. We do so much work. I can't remember what they got. I don't remember fire or volcanoes being the words. It was just more along great, a lot of expansive energy, explosion, and mushroom cloud.
Okay, so now we don't know what the future holds, and you're not constrained again by the fact that we only have 2 or 3 days left in this month. But
Yes.
if one was to extrapolate from that, then you could say that there is a remote possibility, number one, that this viewing and all your viewings were not of La Palma specifically. I know it's
Correct.
a stretch, but it's
Yeah.
possible. We have a big
Yeah.
Earth here, and all kinds of things go on, and that whatever has you did see didn't happen yet, or it had already happened and it triggered La Palma. You see where I'm going with that?
Yes.
So I know this is speculation. I know.
Yeah, absolutely. Either of those options, I have to. Yes, I have to concede and be aware of. Um, Even if at the end of 2 days' time, I'm looking at feedback, and I will probably then, if nothing else happens, say, okay, it looks like we were, or it looks like I was describing La Palma. There's more than enough in my data that I could go to on certain pages that indicates to me that I was probably picking up on a different type of event, unless I was building that in my own mind, imagination wise. But I tend not to do that too much. Yeah, so yes, I mean, I have to concede there may be the possibility that I might have been picking up on a future event of a magnitude of something like the 911 event that just attracted us as remote viewers to a point sometime in the future.
Okay, and one thing that is striking about this again is kind of some of your comments yourself, where because you go, like what the blank is
Yeah, I
going
also
on
picked up
here.
on an assassination, but we all have also had a political assassination attempt this month as well. So I might have been picking up on that.
Okay, when you say a political assassination attempt, what are you talking about?
In the RV session there, it talks about an assassination attempt, and I think there was one in the Ukraine or something a few days back that hit the news. So I
Oh,
could have been
all right.
picking up on that, or again, it could be something a bit more because I was also in the same RV session here, picking up this one you're talking to now, where I felt that there was a country or something on the brink of war with tanks being involved as well, and having an assassination tanks and some kind of RV session makes it look less and less like the La Palma event, to be honest.
Right. That's what I thought. Now, a call to arms, a warning, a global, what does that say, global?
Global reach and global impact.
Right.
That's what worries me about the RV session is either I was producing an over magnitude, so in the RV it was way more than actually happened, or that it might be a different event sometime in the future because the data I was getting seemed to talk about a global effect that would happen from this event that would be really bad, and it would go on for decades. And I'm not sure that would happen from what I've seen of the volcano so far. I'm not sure that would be affect global economic markets and political markets and stuff like that.
Okay, now this is kind of interesting to me because it's a downward
Yes.
spiral. And
Yes.
when one would see the volcano as expelling coming from the
Yes.
earth up, so then this kind of does lend itself to the idea that something might have been shot into the volcano to cause the initial mushroom cloud. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the so-called mushroom cloud that was put on the photograph was one of the early parts of the actual um, you know, volcanism that
Yep.
happened on the island. In other words, since then, what we've really seen, and I'll bring, actually, I'm going to bring this photograph up here because it's a lit. Can you see that? So
Yep.
this is actually from today. And so, incredible energy, fire in the sky, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Now, the reason I also am emphasizing this is because I have actually been following you guys and Courtney and his team, the various people that are working with him for many years. I mean, it could even be as many as 10 years. And I myself do remote viewing, not very often. I'm not that disciplined. So I tend to I'm more psychic, intuitive, and I get, stuff like that. But I sort of rebel against the discipline of remote viewing. But I realize it works and it's valuable and it's worked for me. I've gotten some amazing, hits, if you want to call it that.
Yep.
So because of that, when I see this and when I've been watching La Palma, because I'm also very interested in earth changes and that sort of thing,
Hmm.
and I was struck by the fact that in the past, when you guys have remote viewed a volcanic, eruption, which La Palma absolutely is, you always mention the volcano. You always mention fire. And so this was quite distinctive in that you didn't mention either one, at least in your viewing,
Yes.
at least that I could see. And then I thought, how would you even leave that out, if this really
Yep.
was La Palma? So I'm not saying yes or no. I'm just saying I just wanted to throw these things out, maybe get your thoughts on it. But I do think it's quite interesting that we have sort of you guys are very accurate, and yet, this is the kind of thing you've got a downward motion here. You even say downwards,
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. That's that area there. When I asked the question, what caused this, it looked like something that came down from above and exploded.
right. And so now that see, because also another thing that I've noticed that when you do a remote viewing is sometimes you'll do a remote viewing where you do it in a certain time. So it's a certain time span, and what happens after that time within the viewing, you don't report unless you do a later time where you go, okay, let's look at this 5 hours later, or let's look at this 5 days later, or that kind of
Yeah.
thing. I take it now. Tell me again if I'm wrong. You didn't actually do that thing where you progressed it. Is that right?
No, no, because it's just like our normal news event, and we all work independently and alone.
Right.
I just, as I said, I thought I was completely off target. I was speaking to the guys before the recording, and I was like, I don't even know if I should even go on camera this week because my news is so bad. All I had was a mushroom cloud, and that literally sparked everyone else off because they were like, "Whoa, that's all we got." So it was just totally out there. But I have to be honest, it's not totally out there for us, this kind of event, when we at Crypto Viewing are trying to look at future targets. And you know, one of our subscribers brought this up to me today. They said, "Have a look at something you did in 2019," and I'm just looking at the RV session now. And again, it was a future target, but the future target was a baseball game or something in America that was meant to happen in 2019. And all myself and the other viewers got was a cataclysmic event. And you know, in the one the subscriber told me to look at, I'm looking at it now, and it's talking about a tsunami wave that's crashing over the city, and we're talking about America here, so it's submerging the city. I'm talking about fissures under the ground, the Mariana Trench, the trench, you know, all kinds of weird stuff. So we have, in past events, when looking at the future, especially the future of America, come up with very similar events.
Okay. Now this is another image that I was struck by, because
Yes.
it was the idea that there were tall buildings, a city kind of below. Now there is a city,
Yes.
this is happening on a mountaintop above a city, but and I could be wrong about this as well. I didn't like zoom in and try to see how many tall buildings were in but it just, the drawing itself lent it to seemingly not being. Another mention is there's no island. You didn't mention an island,
Correct. Yes.
and you also don't mention even the tsunami wave idea. So all of these things kind of lend themselves to saying, well, now, but it is interesting, your reaction to getting, the mushroom cloud kind of through you, and that, that in itself could have limited your view. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because you were kind of shocked by that, or whatever you want to call it, and then you went away, came back, got the same thing, but it could have been you limiting yourself. So we
Yes.
don't know, just simply because it was a shocking thing. And
Yes.
that's super clear in your comments to yourself here. That
Yeah. In 24 years of doing RV and in 4 years of doing the news, I myself or the others have never all had mushroom clouds in any of our RV sessions.
and so that is remarkable. I mean, that's what caught my interest. Okay, right away I thought, oh my God, four of these guys, completely without any idea. All of them got this,
Yeah.
in connection with September, and so that's when I really, started paying more and more attention, and this is where we are now. But okay, so what I'm going to do here is, I think we might be at the end of the viewing. Yeah. So, is there anything like you had once you had them, okay, so you have this meeting and you're on video, and it seemed like you actually were videotaping this. The surprise was real, like on the video. It wasn't after you had talked about it, but you actually talked about it on the video. Is that right?
Yeah, as soon as I said, I literally said to the guys, there's 4 or 5 of us on Zoom, and I said, look, I don't know if I'm going to do my RV this week because it's rubbish because all I got was a mushroom cloud, and they're all, their faces were like, wow, that's all we got. That was the moment when we said, right, quick, let's stick the video camera on now. Let's start recording this because it sounds like we got something a bit strange here happening. And we literally didn't talk about any of the other news that we picked up. It was literally, focused on this because even for us, it's a rare event for, as I said, for the 4 viewers and even the project manager who's in training and not really a full-time remote viewer to also get all 5 of us get mushroom clouds.
Yeah, it's very striking. And how long have you been doing this? Just in terms, well, let's first of all, how long have you been in this group viewing the cryptocurrencies? Because I have no idea. How long have you guys been doing that?
3.5 going on 4 years now. Yeah.
All right, so a while.
Yeah.
And you actually, as a remote viewer, you've been involved in this discipline for how long would you say, Jim?
Nearly 25 years now. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And Dick Geyer has a very long track record. The
Yes.
other two I actually don't know, so that's why I don't mention them. I don't
Yep.
really know their work.
Yeah, they're a bit newer. Yeah.
Okay, so and even the not hand he's not called a handler. He's called a, what is he called?
The project manager and host.
Manager.
Yeah,
Okay.
Dennis. Yes.
Okay. So he even got this. So that's
Yes.
extraordinary. That's,
Yes.
now in terms of, because I know that, we don't have to go into this much more. What I did want to talk about was the idea of responsibility. And even in reviewing the cryptocurrencies in the financial situation, there is a responsibility in the sense that you can't just go out there, remote view, be as accurate as you guys are, because I think with accuracy comes more responsibility, right?
Yes.
So, and have it, this is your career. This is not just something you dabble in. Okay. So again,
Correct.
there's a emphasis there. And this is maybe true of everyone in your team. You're selling, in a sense, you're selling your work, and that's perfectly, within the bounds of understandable, what people do to make a living, whatever.
Yes.
But my question is, when something comes along like this, where there could be, like you even said it, one line was massive loss of life. This
Yep.
is when you cross a line into the area of responsibility, and we were kind of batting that back and forth in text. And I posted your statement about that on my page. But what I want to do is get sort of you to describe what kind of thoughts you guys have had, because you do have Patreon and you are charging money. So are you prepared? Do you make a preparation, being in this field as long as you have, for how you guys think about your level of responsibility to the public should you come across something, and again, we don't know if these other guys, you've got about a 20-page thing. It doesn't say anything about water. It doesn't say anything about fire. It doesn't say, volcano.
Yep. Yep.
So it could be anywhere on the planet. And I don't know, you didn't seem to get any more specific than that. Maybe even understandably because of the magnitude of what you thought you might be
Yes.
looking at. But
Yep.
the other guys, the question is, let's say, I'm just hypothetically, they got more. Let's say they got more detail, okay? So at that point, you've got a team together. You've come together to remote view the future. It's a very short-term future. It's like the month of September, literally, at least you're trying to keep it within those bounds. And
Yes.
yet you could get a life-threatening event that could be global. This has
Yes.
the potential to be that. What do you guys say to each other? What are your plans? How do you deal with that?
It's very hard. I mean, we always put out public statements, especially for when we're doing the cryptos themselves. We tell people that we're not giving financial advice. We're not financial advisors. They should not, never use any more money than they can afford. And always, with any form of remote viewing, be it what we do or what anyone does remote viewing wise, you should always use it with other sources of information. Never take it for granted. And we tell the people all the time. I think we did in the video. We tell people, and I think I went over it. I'm only 65% accurate when looking at the future. You have to take that into consideration. And my magnitude in the RV is always a lot more than the actual real physical events. So we do try to do that with a balanced mind. But I have to be honest. We've looked at stuff in the past, like the session that I got here today. Where sometimes we don't put some of the information out because the picture we pick up is too grim. We don't know what to do with it because it's a bit too scant in where and how and when. We just know some events are going to happen. For example, all throughout 2019, we were looking at, we were being tasked to look at events in the USA in the future, and I think it was like Macy's Parade in 2020 and stuff like that. And I don't know why we were tasked it, but we were tasked doing it. And all of us to a T, all of us remote viewers, we didn't pick up anything. We were like, well, our data doesn't show that there is no Macy's Day Parade. There's not going to be one in 2008. We're not getting any. We're getting something else. We're describing like fields or something else. I think it was desolation and stuff, but we were getting anything other than a parade, but we didn't know that at the time, and there wasn't a specific target for a target event, so we didn't know what to do with that information. All we knew is the event wasn't going to happen. We couldn't tell anyone any reason why. I mean, I guess if we'd have spent several weeks or months looking specifically at that, we might have been able to get more information. It's just that from week to week to satisfy the needs of our people who, our subscribers who are paying our wages. Really, we don't get a chance to stay on a topic for long and focus on it. They want us to move on and tell us what's happening the next month, what's happening with the next crypto, which is one of the I guess bad things, because it would be good for us to concentrate a lot more on this. As I said, like the session I got here from 2019, and I got pictures here looking into the future, where I've got like New York, or I've got the words New York, but I've got the coast of America and stuff underwater. But what to do with that kind of information, really, because unless we focused on it as a project, with 5 or 6 remote viewers spending several dedicated weeks on it, we're not going to be able to fill and get a report of a time, an approximate time, or approximate date, approximate what's happening, that kind of thing. It needs a lot more of a focus.
This would be under the heading of actionable intelligence. If you use those terms,
Yes.
and the military uses that. Obviously, the agencies use that. So actionable intelligence is that's like a crucial distinction. So
Yes.
what you're saying in a certain sense is that in viewing the future month, you're not really getting actionable intelligence necessarily.
Correct.
Not enough detail for anyone to do anything about it, to take an action,
Yes.
in theory. Now,
Yes.
let's drill down into that a little bit more, because in a sense, your group is very focused on cryptos. Because there can be plenty of people that watch this to hear, what do you have to say about cryptos? Because even right now, there are some dire predictions. The Chinese supposedly backed out of, I don't know, was Bitcoin, I guess, or
Yes.
was it all cryptos, just Bitcoin? And some people say it's a ploy. They've done it before. They're going to come back in, all this kind of stuff. So can you address, first of all, in terms of cryptos, do you feel that you give actionable intelligence, regardless of the fact you have a disclaimer and all of that? But
Yeah.
would somebody watch you and say, oh, I'm going to believe what Dad says. He sees this thing going up. I'm going to go buy. That's on them. That's their responsibility to believe you or not believe you. You've got a disclaimer. But do you feel that you are giving enough actionable intelligence
Yeah.
in terms
Yeah.
of the cryptos?
Absolutely. I mean, we have figures to show it. And literally 2 days ago, I had a comment someone put on Facebook saying how just by following us on crypto viewing, we had increased their wealth by 10 times over a year. And myself, I don't have much disposable income, but whatever I have, I do put into cryptos. And right now, over the last 2 years, my investment in cryptos is at 500%. I mean, you can't get less than 1% in a bank.
Okay, so what do you mean by that? That means, are you saying 500% positive, or that
Yeah, yeah.
you
So
benefit,
if I'm not going to say how much I've invested, but it's not a huge amount. But
right?
let's say I had invested $10,000 or something. As of today, at 500%, I'm that 10,000 will be up at 60,000 right now
Right. So that's very,
in
very
two
good.
years.
So,
Yes.
okay, now with that in mind, your group is not just focused on cryptos, it's also focused, you said, on like what could happen during the month,
Yes.
events, news events, right?
Yes.
So if you were to put the same parameters on the news events, do you feel you're getting actionable intelligence in terms of news events, or less so?
Because it's I would say, like cryptos, because we're looking at the future. I would say, as I said, all I can go is from my stats. My stats show that looking at the future news, I'm 65% accurate. So if I give 10 predictions a month, and I usually do give something like 10 different things each month, six to 6.5 of them are going to turn out to be correct month on month.
Okay, now given that, okay, let's talk about September, and then let's actually talk about October, if there's anything you can say at all.
Haven't done it
So,
yet. Yeah.
oh, you haven't looked at October yet?
No,
Really?
I'm due to do that tomorrow and turn it in tomorrow.
Oh, all right. So yeah,
But it's gonna
deadline's
be a
getting
hard
kind
one
of
this month
close.
though. Yeah, it's going to be really hard for us to do this month because the volcano La Palma thing is so big and it's so in every news channel that the moment I sit down to do my RV tomorrow, I think that the thing that's just going to be going through my head even before I start is La Palma, what's going to happen, and
Oh,
that. So it's going to be very hard to try to get the imagination out of the way.
all right.
Yes.
Okay, very interesting. So they're you're worried about what we call overlay. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So in terms of, but let's go backwards then. So for September, are you able to tell us like what were your hits? Did you have like,
I haven't scored that yet. I literally do not score my RV until the month is ended because I'm a bit it's a bit like not it's a bit of like a religious, not religious, but it's a bit of a ritual of mine. I try not to score it before it's happened. Dick and the others score theirs as it proceeds, but I like to say no. When the month's ended, I will then go back and look at the news sources and mark how many were accurate.
I see.
So I
Okay,
haven't
well
looked yet.
then let's go back a month. Let's go to August. How are you
Okay.
doing in August?
I don't know. To be honest, I do so many of these. I can't even remember what let me see if I can get at what I did in August.
Okay.
Because we're doing, I'm doing like 4 or 5 different RV sessions a week, so it's like 20 a month at the moment. And that's just for crypto viewing, and I have other
Right.
things
But
I'm working for.
even if I guess just for the people who are listening, or maybe if not, specifically in August, what's a big crypto hit that you got that made a difference in your financial, if in your own financial sort of well-being, as opposed to, is there any specific or that the group got, because
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
it's a whole
It's
group.
hard to say really because we probably do four. We look at four or five different cryptos alone each month that are randomly assigned to us. Bearing in mind there are 12,000 and growing cryptos out there now. When we first started this, there were only four. But yeah, so I take I mean, going back a couple of years, one we did was called Cardano, and I invested in that because it was when I started investing, it was less than 10 cents each. As of today, they're at $2.23 each, and I'm expecting them from not just from RV research, but from the other research, on the side that I'm looking at as well. Looking at the stats and performance and people involved. I'm expecting that one to easily go to over the next 6 to 8 months to $5, and it's only at $2.30 at the moment.
Okay, yeah, somebody actually, I have to say, in full disclosure here, somebody actually did tell me to invest in it. I haven't figured out how to do that. And I know I sound dumb, but I actually have an account, a Coinbase account, and I
Yeah,
got
that's the easiest.
yeah, I got various things. One thing that somebody else is trying to get me into, and I have a tiny bit, I have a little bit of Ethereum. I did make money on
Yeah,
Bitcoin
yeah,
because people donated Bitcoin, and then,
yes.
I put in a small amount myself, and actually it went up like a
Yep.
huge amount.
90% of I mean, the others are different than me. They have different opinions. But 90% of my investment is in Bitcoin. And I'm expecting Bitcoin today is at something like what's it now? 41 at the moment as I speak. Its all time high was $62,000. All the top experts are indicating that by February, but it should be this year, but by February it should be up around about 100 grand. Within 5 years, myself and quite a lot of people out there are expecting each Bitcoin to be worth anything up to a million plus each.
Okay, now there are a few, I guess, naysayers, what do you want to call it, who are actually sort of screaming at the top of their lungs in a way, saying there's going to be a huge financial crash, get out of everything.
I think there's going to be a financial crash in the traditional markets, which will bring, and I've been for 6 months, I've been waiting for it to happen, and I think it will drag cryptos down for a very short period, but I think cryptos will then rapidly increase again faster than the traditional markets and stronger than before. And of course, with cryptos, as they say, it's always the best time to buy is always on the dip. So I'm hoping and waiting for the crash to happen, and even for cryptos to crash a bit. I know I'll lose value in my portfolio, but then it will be a big buy signal for me to buy it when it's hit rock bottom, and I'll massively increase my wealth then on it.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it's coming soon. Absolutely, it's coming soon. But I don't think cryptos are going anywhere. It's now nearly a $2.5 trillion market in several years. You look at the chart of Bitcoin over 10 years, and it's gone up from nothing to at its peak $62,000 and beyond. It's finite. There's only around about 19 million of them available for the entire world, and there'll never be any more of them. So yes, it literally is digital gold, and you just have to look at all the research. All the big financial institutions, they're buying up Bitcoin like crazy. There's more demand for Bitcoin than there is Bitcoin out there.
Okay, very interesting. What about XRP? Because I hear a lot about that.
They've had problems with the SEC, which are still
Yes.
ongoing. Um, So I don't know on that one. I did buy a small amount of it many years ago when it was looking favourable because it looked like it was the one that was going to work with all the banks.
Hmm.
I think time's probably up for that one. I'm not sure if that's ever going to go anywhere now, to be honest. I think everything's moved on in such a degree the last year that they're a bit left behind now.
Now, when you're talking right now, you're sort of talking, it sounds like it's a combination of as a remote
It
viewer
is.
might have looked at it, but at the same time as someone who did research.
Yes.
So, in terms of, I don't know whether you want to do this or not, and I don't know if I need, I have a disclaimer at the end of my show and all that kind of thing, but do you want to say anything for the people that are watching of anything that you guys have looked at recently that you think is going up? I mean, you mentioned Cardano, but is there anything else that's really sort of that you are reporting on that you can share with our audience that's already gone out to your,
Yeah, I'm just trying to
subscribers so they
think.
got the first, word on it?
I'm just trying to think. Yeah, because you have to bear in mind as well that we all have different opinions on it as well.
Right.
And usually I'm quite a naysayer on quite a lot of them. They just
All
some of
right.
them just don't feel right to
Well, you could
me.
even say what others in your group are saying. I mean, you don't have to say necessarily your own.
Uh, yeah, I mean they've all been investing. Well, some of them and some of my colleagues have all been investing lately in a crypto that's done really well last month called Solana. Um,
Solana.
that's yeah, that's done really well. Yeah, but
But you're
for
not you're
me,
not really gung ho.
no, I'm to be honest, I'm a lazy investor in that if I can't buy it really fast with one click on Coinbase, I'm not in, and you can't do that with Solana. But some of the others we look at are so out there, and you have to put money on different 9 different exchanges and transfer, it, and it takes like 3 hours to do. If I have to do that, even though I know I can make 10 times the money I'm investing, or it looks like I could, I tend not to do it because it's too complicated for me.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm certainly like that.
Yeah, so I'm a Bitcoin, Cardano, and Ethereum person. I mean, I didn't like Ethereum when our guys were all very bullish on Ethereum for years, and I looked at it with RV and I was like, well, it just looks a bit boring to me. So literally I only put a few £100s into it just for a bit of fun one day. But literally that the money I've put in that over 6 months is tripled, and now I'm kicking myself thinking, oh damn, if I only had put a load more money in that. But I still think even that one's got a huge way to go. So yeah, for me, I would say Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, Solana, all the what they call the DeFi or decentralized finance coins like Uniswap, Polygon. Yeah, they're all rising. They're all going lots of places. But we're talking 1 to 5 years on this. Because with crypto at the moment, I feel, and I tell this to all our subscribers as well, because I was in on the beginning of how the internet was built and developed way back in the late 90s to early 2000s. I see a very similar situation. When I was getting into the internet in 1998, 1999, people, I used to read stories everywhere. People going, oh, it's just a fad. It's just things that people with computers are doing. It's never going to take off. It's never going anywhere. That's what they're saying about crypto now. So even if people can get into it now with tiny bits of money, and you can buy, you can buy Bitcoin for $1 a time if that's all you've got. But if you get into it now, you're still ahead of the curve like we were with the internet in 5 to 10 years' time. That's when it's going to get big.
Right. I think that's true. I have to say, just on a psychic level, I don't know why, but Ethereum caught my eye. So I did actually put a little money, not a, I have nothing, but Steve,
Yeah.
what you call disposable, I have so little. But I did put some on there because I had a psychic feeling about it.
Yep.
So, and it took the longest time to go anywhere. It just stayed
Yes,
flat for a really long time. So I thought, oh, well, I guess I was really, maybe I
it's
shouldn't.
going. It's going now, and
And
I
now
think
it's finally moving. So
yeah,
I was really, really happy about that.
I think it's nearly at $3,000 today, and there are people out there that know what they're talking about. I don't. I listen to other people on most of the device of this and add my intuition, of course. But I think because Ethereum is the what we call the building blocks for 90% of all the other ones out there, all the other 12,000. I don't think it's going anywhere, and I think it's got lots of room to grow on that, and maybe even double. That could go to $5,000-6,000 over the next 2-3 years.
Hmm. Right.
And again, you
Well, good.
can't get investment opportunities like that anywhere else. You can't get that from a bank or anywhere.
Right. Okay, so now, I'm not going to keep you too much longer, and you've been very generous with your answers as well as your time. But what I want to ask you is because we're on the verge of October, and I know that you haven't looked at October, okay? So let's, say that. But knowing that you haven't looked at October, and, just tell me in terms of, do you get like, because we've talked about this even off the record, like you are still have some psychic abilities. You have intuition that does pay off, in various ways and has when you were a younger child and so on and so forth. So because October is supposed to be such a groundbreaking month, like, have you heard that? I certainly I'm hearing that everywhere. Now,
Uh,
is that going to impact when you do your viewing, or is
I
that already impacting your brain when you're looking at it, or what?
I mean, yeah, it's already that's the problem as being a remote viewer. If you know what you're looking at and stuff, you do have to try to put it aside, and only experience allows you to do that. Um, I have to be honest, I'm a little bit worried that this month's going to go completely bad. And, it may get to the case that I don't know how the others are going to do it as well. I'm meeting them later, so I'll find out. But it may be a case of that because we're so scared that all we're going to pick up is our imagination about, what's happened this month with the volcano and stuff, that we purposely block out any information about anything that might happen with a volcano because, we're just thinking it's imagination. Um, I don't know. It's very hard doing this kind of work that we're doing because not a lot of people have, well, no one's done a project that's gone on for 3.5 years looking month on month at the future. So we are testing new ground with it really, and it is all very experimental. But yeah, it's going to be hard knowing that I have to sit down tomorrow and look at the news that's going to happen literally a couple of days after that onwards, and try not to let my imagination come into play and build what we call build castles, build things that aren't real, based on what I've seen this last month with the mushroom cloud, and my feelings about if it really was the volcano, or if it is, or maybe a future event which is a bit more devastating globally.
Right.
So yeah, it's hard. That's all I can say on it. It's
Yeah, no,
hard.
I just wanted people, that's part of the reason I brought you on the show was to kind of, give some depth and background to what you guys came out with. And, so that there would be some understanding, deeper understanding of the process you're going through, the ins and outs and the facts of what you saw and what you didn't see,
Yes.
and maybe what it could mean or what it might not mean, and all of
Yeah.
this, and then the responsibility that's behind it. Because I think that's maybe the biggest question I would think in people's minds would be, wow, you're seeing this, you're seeing things.
Yeah.
Do you warn anybody ever? And that might be the last good
Yeah.
question to ask you.
I
Have you
mean,
warned
we do.
anyone?
I mean, we don't put out like public,
Well, I'm
statements, but
talking about governments or behind the
yeah,
scenes.
no, we don't do anything like that. Literally, but anyone that's a subscriber to us, they get everything, so they get to see everything, and then they talk about it and they spread it. We have been told by people that are working with the government, remote viewers that work with the government, that there are agencies that do look at our work, and yeah, make decisions based on some of our work, because we have come up with some quite interesting predictions and work and stuff. So yeah, we've been told that that happens, but we don't know. We don't know for certain. But everything we do communication wise is through email and Zoom and project management software. So we know the NSA has access to all that anyway.
Sure.
Yeah, but we don't put we don't put out public statements. Because I for example, being an avid researcher of remote viewing, I know from my research and the work I've done on missing persons cases, and I've done 250 of those for the American police forces, that a great hindrance to the police forces across the globe, but I'm talking about America now mainly, are when they have a famous case and that it's reported really well in the press, and they get hundreds of people that claim to be psychics giving them tips, and of course because they're police, even though they think that a lot of these people are inaccurate and maybe a bit crazy and whatever, because it's intelligence, they literally have to follow those tips up, and 99.9% of them are complete rubbish and time wasters. So we don't want to go down that route and interrupting. And we've got this like the softy approach. If you're a subscriber, the information's there for you. If you're not, then I don't know I don't know where to go from that really. I don't want to put out all the
So
stuff I
as a
do on it.
subscriber, does that does that give you some kind of legal protection that you wouldn't have, for example, if you didn't have subscribers?
Um, I'm not sure if it does. I know the company that we're all working under has lawyers, and we put out, our disclaimers and stuff. Um, and we try to tell everyone remote viewing's, no one's 100% accurate. It's not accurate all the time. And as I said, my predictive stuff is nowhere near as accurate as my past based stuff. For example, us as Crypto View, and we just done a project for Dick Algar, an internal project looking at and the feedback was a picture of a grey alien with a bullet wound in its head or something, and we all come up with absolutely amazing data on that. I do scratches inside the body of this thing, his internal organs and everything, and we're really accurate on that kind of stuff because it's past. Whereas the future, because it hasn't collapsed into a single scenario yet, we're just not as accurate on. That's why I'm a bit wary about how I present future-based information, knowing I'm only 65% accurate.
Okay, very interesting. Uh, what do you know what Dick Algeier considers himself in terms of future? What his percentage is? Is it like
I don't know what his percentage is, but based on all my work that I've done with looking at other people, like the people that are playing with a technical, what we call ARV, where you're trying to win money, with outcomes of sports and bettings, all that kind of stuff. The average, really across the board, across tens of thousands of remote viewers, is around about usually 60 to 70% accurate when looking at anything to do with future-based work.
okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
And if the long and the thing is as well, it's got these variables. Whereas the longer you do it, and the more bored you get doing it as well, over time that accuracy drops to something just over chance. So something like 55%. So
Wow.
if
Yeah.
you get bored, in doing it, and over time your accuracy can drop to little more than just flipping a coin, really.
Okay. Very interesting. Okay. Well, in
And there's a video of that up on my YouTube channel.
great. I'm sure people can go there. So your YouTube channel, is it called Dad Smith or what is it called?
It's on YouTube, and it's just you can search for Daz Smith or Remote Viewed. The channel's called YouTube/Remote Viewed.
Okay, remote viewed. Okay, very
Yeah.
good. All right. And for people that want to subscribe to your Patreon, how do they find that?
Yeah, so I think, bear with me a second on that. I haven't got the address for that, but I'm sure it's just Patreon/crypto viewing. Patreon.com/crypto viewing, and then you can
Okay,
find out, but it's there.
fine. Okay,
Yeah.
that's probably, and I'll get it and put it on the page as well. So
Yeah, and if you're on Facebook at all as well, all the hits we have on a weekly basis, because we have social media people that work for us, they put all the hits and most of the data and reports for free on Facebook. If you just say you like the crypto viewing page or whatever it is, yeah.
okay, is your organization called Crypto Viewing or
Yes, crypto viewing, yes.
okay? All right, great. All right. Thank you so much for being on the show, and thanks for your insights and for being here and doing your service to humanity as well. And let's see what you see in October. I think a lot of people are going to be very interested in that. So,
If I see anything bad, I'll let you know.
okay. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Take care, and thanks again
Yeah.
for being on the show.
Yeah. Nice speaking to you again.
All right. You take care. Bye
Take
bye.
care.